Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the afternoon on this show, presented by Bet365 and your local Ford store. That's right, I'm Bill Matz. I'm back. I wasn't fired. I was just on vacation. Everybody can relax. And joining me today in the Xfinity Mobile studio, it is the man who's been holding it down in my absence, Philly's #1 hockey beat writer, Charlie O'Connor. What's going on today, Chuck? Good to see you.
It's good to see you too, William. Glad we could get this the show in before the not holiday break, I guess, but we're not doing a show on Monday, and then I'll be off next week going to some weddings. But yeah, great to have the duo back together before that last little bit before the camp schedule gets going.
Yeah, and speaking of schedule, Charlie, cheers to our summer schedule, because when we return on Tuesday, we are, of course, off for Labor Day. The show moves to 4 p.m. RIP, our wonderful noon start time this summer. It all comes to an end on Tuesday when we move back to 4 p.m. Tuesday, September 2nd. So make sure you mark your calendars, you set that notification bell so you get the notifications whenever we go live, all that stuff. Couple of things to tell you about before we get started today. First, Die Hard sale. That's right. For the low price of $36, you get the football club special. You get the free new Bird Gang Football Club shirt. Very cool. I dig this shirt a ton. And all of the benefits of a Die Hard membership. Access to all of our premium content from our all-star roster of writers. Access to the Discord. Discount on merchant events. So many benefits of being a diehard. Now you get it for the low price of $36. Perfect time to sign up right before football season, hockey season, basketball season, baseball playoffs. This is the time of year you want to sign up to get that diehard access. Do it right now, and it is only $36 intro offer for the entire year. Speaking of selling you stuff, we're going out west. We are going to California. That's right. In March 17th to the 22nd, Philly Sports Trips and PHLY Flyers going out to catch a Ducks game in Anaheim, a Kings game in LA, and a watch party. That's right. We're not going to the San Jose game, but there's going to be an awesome watch party for that. A meet and greet with the one and only John LeClaire. There's going to be so much fun had on this trip. More details to come, but all I got to tell you now, go to allphly.com. Click the events tab and put your deposit down. Get in on this before it sells out. The holidays will be upon us before you know it. And next thing you know, oh man, it's St. Patty's Day. Wasn't I supposed to be doing something? Yeah, going out to California with us. You didn't do it. Now you're missing out on the trip of a lifetime. Make sure right now, Philly Sports Trips, allphly.com. Check it out. Come out to California with the gang. I think that's everything, right, Charlie?
I think so.
I've been away a while. I'm trying to remember,
We've had a lot of
hit the like button. We need the
like
likes.
button. Hit that like button. Indeed. I was forgetting that this past week. Yeah.
Yeah, way to go. Hit the freaking like button. All right, so the biggest story right now, Charlie, it's Kyle Schwarber. Sorry for everyone who didn't not baseball fans. 4 home runs last night, 9 RBI. My question for you, Charlie, what would come close to that in hockey? Like, what is the equivalent of something that awesome where, a chance to hit 5, which no one's ever done, franchise record, 9 RBI, like that is an insane freaking night. What would even come close to that in hockey? Like, I'm trying to, like, a goalie shutout and goalie goal. Like, what are the things that would even come close to that?
It's an interesting question because I feel like baseball is so much more of like a numbers game in the sense that like the records are hallowed. 5 goals, the home run, or five home runs, the home run record, 400 if you're talking about batting average.
Batting average, yeah.
Like it's just more. There's just more mystique around
it. And it's an individual sport. Like, yes, it's a team game, but like, I don't know, having 6 assists in a game isn't as cool as 4 home runs,
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I think the 5 goal a game, 5 goals in a game. That's probably the
wild. Yep.
closest. Like that's the closest you can get in the NHL. That said, it's happened more times than I believe it's happened than 4 home runs has happened in a game. And I think I think the all-time record in the NHL is 7 goals in a game, but that was like I'm pretty sure that was in like the early days of the NHL when we're talking about a completely different game. I don't know if that would like, but I guess if someone were ever to like get 6 goals in a game and like have a chance, like they pull the goalie and they have a shot to get 7, like I don't know how that would even like the other team would have to also score a ton of goals for that to even be an option. But I feel like that's the only way it would be similar to what happened last night with Schwarber, where he has a shot to get the 5th home run against a position player. You're like, oh man, he actually could do this. This could happen.
He had it too, man. He said after the game, I shouldn't have asked in the cage how many people have ever hit 5 because the answer is none. And you could just tell he got that pitch to hit and was a little too excited, man. It was freaking there. It was there for him, and he just damn.
Looking at these numbers, like in fairness, 5 goals in a game, like that's probably the closest equivalent because looking at it since the since the game changed, since there was the lockout that we lost the season on, there's only been 6 times that a player has scored 5 goals in a game. Marian Gaborik did it with the Wild. Johan Franzen did it with the Red Wings. Patrick Laine did it. Mika Zibanejad did it. Timo Meier did it. And Tage Thompson did it. So, like, we're talking 6 times in 2 decades, basically. That's pretty rare. So that is probably the closest to this kind of feat if we're talking hockey-wise.
It's crazy. Ovechkin has scored 900 goals almost in that time span, and he didn't do it. That's especially considering the Ovechkin commercial. I don't know. Anyway, what's the coolest thing you've gotten to cover? Like, what is there like a moment that you're like, oh man, this is really freaking cool that you like have seen live, gotten to cover? Obviously, I don't think many things, especially covering this Flyers team, like they've been no good for 2 decades. Like, and nothing comes close to 4 home runs, but like something that was just like, this is cool. I'm gonna remember this one.
I think probably the closest for me would be, and it's funny given the conversation we're going to have today, is probably that game 82 when Giroux scores the hat trick to get the Flyers into the playoffs and break 100 points. It was the culmination of those last few weeks when he basically put the team on his back, but also to score a hat trick in the win and you're in game for the Flyers and break the century mark for the first time in his career. That felt momentous. That felt really big. I would say though, and this is a little bit of a cheat because it wasn't one game, probably the coolest thing I've seen as a media person covering was the height of Shane Gostisbehere's rookie year, where it was every single night he was doing something really cool. And you just knew. You went into every home game, you're thinking to yourself, like, what's he going to do this time? Is he going to score an overtime game winner? Is he going to get 4 points? He's going to score a hat trick? Like, what's he going to do? Because every night he was doing something crazy because he was just playing with supreme confidence.
Yeah.
Team was feeding off of him. It was an extremely cool run. Because obviously, I mean, he's a good NHL player. He's established himself as a quality piece on good teams, but I don't think he's ever quite recaptured that level of, oh my God, this guy, you have to watch him every night because he's going to do something awesome.
No, that was freaking electric. You meant like the overtime winners, him, Jake, and G out there in overtime was must-see television. The clap bombs, like... he had that rookie point streak for a defenseman that was like longer than Bobby Orr's at one point. Like he was, that's a really good one actually. It's not a single moment, but that one was freaking nuts. I'm trying to think if there's anything like there was a just absolute bleep show of a playoff game between the Phantoms and Bears I went to in '97. Just the craziest brawl I've ever seen. That was awesome. Great Neil Little fight in there. Just dudes beating the crap out of each other. It was like the Royal Rumble, basically.
I'm not shocked that you're naming a fight as the most memorable thing you've seen.
Listen, I'm a Flyers fan. It's not like I've gotten to see a bunch of awesome stuff. I can't really think of anything, especially that comes close to that. The Braden Shen hat trick with Bra Lady, that was really fun.
I thought you were going to say the fan trying to fight Ty Domi in the penalty box.
If I had been there for that, that would absolutely be way up there. 100%. But hard to come up with something as cool as we saw in the Phillies game last night. But listen, that's why you go to sporting events, is because you might see something you've never seen before. Yeah. And that was just random. It's also crazy. Did you see Abbott Elementary was filming with Kyle Schwarber yesterday?
I did. They were all at the game. Yeah.
That's so freaking cool. Just the way things work sometimes, maybe sports are fixed. All right. But anyway, I don't think so. It would be, if they were, like, why don't they ever get fixed for us? You know?
Yeah. You're like, sports aren't fixed. Now the lottery is, on the other hand.
We're not doing it today, Charlie. I haven't seen you in a week. We're not doing it today. We have other stuff we can argue about. But first, it is now time for the Dig Deal. Wow, it's been a week. It is now time for the Big Deal, presented by Kia of Cherry Hill. Visit KiaofCherryHill.com today, Charlie. And this is something I saw right before we went live. We are going to get not only a Martone versus McKenna game in, Penn State, Michigan State. That's all well and good. We're getting an outdoor game between the two coming up January 31st. Michigan State will visit Penn State. They will be playing at Beaver Stadium. That seems like a pretty freaking big deal, and we have to figure out a way to get sent there, Chuck.
I would have no problems with that. I also, like, the first thing I thought when I saw this was, is this a dry run for a Flyers Penguins outdoor game? Because it's been talked about for a decade, having one in State College at Beaver Stadium. I based on what I've heard from people with the Flyers, like, they want to do it. It's just a matter of, like, getting the logistics set up. But I do wonder, when I saw this, I'm like, is this them? Is this them, like, a little test bubble here?
Charlie, I don't think you meant to do it, but you just gave credence to my fixed lottery thing. Oh, it's a dry run of Flyers Penguins. Yeah, Martone versus McKenna. It is a dry run of Flyers Penguins. This will be the first of two meetings, at least at Beaver Stadium, between these two guys. Of course, like, there's not a question in my mind. Gavin McKenna is going to be a Pittsburgh Penguin. And you basically just set it up. You media elite just let it slip what's going to happen. Capital J journalism breaking Charlie O'Connor. Anyway, that's the Big Deal, presented by Kia of Cherry Hill. I love outdoor games. They are not the TV draw that they used to be, but if you go to one, they're freaking awesome. And if this happens, and, like, it's been announced, it's happening, but I'm going to figure out a way to get us there, Chuck, because this is pretty cool. I mean, the number one prospect in the world against the Flyers, number one prospect at this point, outside at Penn State. Could be a fun time. Like 100,000 people there. That's pretty sick. You know what? Let's do this first ad break a little early so we can get right into this Dale Weise stuff that I've been waiting days to
talk about. You desperately want to be involved in the Dale Weise discourse.
I so badly, when I saw you and Kelly talking about it, I was like, I want to go to work today. All right, but let's throw it to our first commercial break. Listen, the other day, I'm over at my buddy's place, and he's showing me his new setup for everything coming this season. We got football coming in. We got Birds games to watch. Obviously, hockey and basketball as well. Red October, all of that coming up. He's showing me this new setup and everything, and it looks great. He got a bar put in. He's got the big screen TV. But we're sitting there, testing it out, seeing how it's going to go for the playoffs. And little laggy, just not great. Wasn't awesome. Wasn't the best viewing experience. And you know why? It's because he doesn't have Xfinity internet. You got to see for yourself. If you call yourself a sports fan, if you call yourself a football or hockey fan, you have to have Xfinity because it's the ultimate sports destination. I can find all the best games and my favorite teams all in one place. And the way I watch, it's freaking next level. It's the perfect fan flex. I've got all the action right in the living room. I'm telling my buddy, there's no other way to go. You got to fix this. You got to fix it with Xfinity. And Xfinity's best picture and sound with enhanced 4K. It's clear. It's like you're in the arena. Sometimes there's 4 games going at once. This is a 4 town. Xfinity, they've got it all. And on top of that, I get real-time notifications and live stats right on the television. It's the best seat in the house every single time. Next game day, make sure that big fan isn't a big fail. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Restrictions apply. Multi-view requires Xfinity 4K capable TV box. And while we're here, why don't I tell you about Kia of Cherry Hill? Listen, if you're looking for the dealership with the most inventory and super low lease payments in the Philadelphia area, Kia of Cherry Hill and KiaofCherryHill.com is the place to go. Choose from over 450 new Kias, including Telluride, Sportages, K5s, Celtos, Souls, Carnivals, and so much more. Kia is the hottest automotive brand in the country, and it's for a reason. It's a very simple reason. 7 of their models received 2025 Car and Driver's Editor's Choice Awards. That's pretty wild considering there are more than 450 models tested, and only 20 models industry-wide received this award. 7 of the 20? Pretty good ratio. Combine that with the best warranty in the automotive business, 10 years, 100,000-mile powertrain, 5 years, 60,000-mile bumper-to-bumper. Where else would you go? So stop in today, tell them PHLY sent you, and receive a $100 restaurant.com gift card just for taking a test drive or completing a trade appraisal. I know people buy Kias elsewhere. I just don't know why. Drive home in your new Kia today. Just minutes from all bridges are available online 24/7 at KiaofCherryHill.com. All right, Charlie. You know my guy, Dale Weise, as I used to refer to him. I used to say, score a goal and I'll pronounce your name right.
That was a very funny bit, I will say. That was a great bit. Well, that lasted like his entire tenure.
This stuff made me so mad just reading it. And not even mad, just like the conversation I want to have today. If you saw the title of the show and the description and everything, like, all right, let's accept this premise. Let's accept that Giroux wasn't the best captain. Just for the sake of this conversation, maybe he wasn't. It doesn't matter because, like, you know, their best defenseman didn't exist. They didn't have one of those in Claude Giroux's prime. The team stunk. They didn't have a goalie. Leadership didn't matter because the players weren't good enough. But whatever. Let's just accept this premise. But just like Dale Weise, dude, this idea that he was stat padding the best players in the team, like, you talk about that 17-18 season, especially those last few weeks with Claude Giroux, Charlie. Giroux put up 44 points in the final 29 games of 17-18. That was Weise's second year with the team. G put up 9 points in the last 4 games. Weise had 8 points all year. Maybe he's stat padding because there's no other, like, we all realize that the stats, counting the amount of goals the team scores, that's how you win. Like, oh man, he's scoring goals. Yeah. Hat trick in game 82 to put them in the playoffs. Oh, that's terrible. Like, yeah, he's really padding his stats, putting the team in the freak anyway. It just made me like, dude, you stunk. The reason, like, you're the reason the team wasn't good, not the leadership. It's because we were depending on guys like you who put up 8 points. Anyway.
Glad you got that out, William.
I just, like, you know what? I have my issues with Claude Giroux and the Claude Giroux era, but what the hell are we talking about here? Like, what are we actually? Oh, yeah, the only good player. He's the problem. What goes on in your head that you think this is the. Anyway. Dale Weise. I want to accept this premise just for the sake of conversation.
Do you?
Because listen, maybe he really wasn't the best captain, but like, who cares? They didn't have a goalie, so it didn't matter. Like, oh yeah, he didn't want to win or bring the team into the fight. Like, really? That's the Claude? Not like, if you want to say he didn't show up in a few playoff series, I'm all here for that. Like, didn't do enough in a few playoff series. I'm all for that conversation. I'll have it. But, like, the reason the team didn't win isn't him. It's everyone else wasn't good. It was like him, Jake G, Simmons, and like a year of Ghost, like 2 seasons of Ghost,
and Couturier at the end.
And Coots at the end. Yeah, exactly. Like by 17-18 finally, when really like it's his biggest season, but kind of the tail end of Giroux's prime. We're going to get into all this. But I want to look at the failures of that era, the Claude Giroux, his prime captaincy era, and see how maybe Danny Briere's Flyers, this new BriERA, the Matvei Mishkov built around Flyers, can avoid some of the pitfalls from disappointing time. I thought Claude Giroux isn't really the guy to blame, but the era of his captaincy, certainly as an organization, was disappointing, Charlie.
Yeah,
and
that's totally fair. That's totally fair. That
like,
you can't look back on, and I'm with you. I don't blame Claude Giroux for that, but you can't look back on that era and think like, man, that was an awesome time to be a Flyers fan. Like, I as someone who began it as a fan and then turned into a full-time journalist, like I enjoyed watching Claude Giroux play. I enjoyed watching Jake Voracek do cool things. I enjoyed watching Wayne Simmons be Wayne Simmons, but it was lacking in the kinds of galvanizing the entire fan base is on board and the Wells Fargo Center is rocking moments that are the key moments of being a Flyers fan, of any Flyers era. It didn't really have those. It had a couple of them, but when we're pointing to a game 82, it was lacking.
Yeah. All right. So let's just accept the leadership conversation for a second. Just, okay, maybe there were systemic issues with those teams that went beyond, hey, they're not good enough. So my first point about the leadership on those teams and how maybe the Flyers now can learn from that, or maybe how they already have kind of pivoted. Number one, Giroux came up in a less than ideal locker room. The 08 to 11 teams were really good. They had some really good times. They also quit on their coach in 2011. There were clearly issues between the leaders of that team. Like, there was the Chris Pronger clique. There was the Mike Richards, Jeff Carter clique. It was a less than ideal situation. Giroux, starting from the time he's a rookie, really didn't know what functional was. It was an organization that was somewhat succeeding despite obvious dysfunction behind the scenes. I think they've already kind of addressed that a little bit. Like, first, while John Tortorella was insane and the team seemed to hate him, it feels like it drew them together as a group more so than all right, we have Laviolette and Pronger over here and Dry Island, and we have Mike Richards and Jeff Carter over here being like, that's stupid, I'm not doing that. Like, it feels as if I'm not in the locker room now, don't know these guys personally. It just kind of feels like there's gonna be less of that because this team went through stuff together that they're now on the other side of. How do you feel about that, Charlie?
Well, I mean, yes, I do think that's part of it. I just think that this team, and this is probably the part of Weise's critique that I buy the most. It's more that I just think this locker room is tighter socially than it was during that era, during the Giroux era. Giroux wasn't that kind of guy. He wasn't that kind of captain. My understanding, and it wasn't, I don't think it was like Giroux was a bad dude and Giroux was purposely, dividing the room into like guys I like and guys I don't. But Giroux was, especially when he was taking over as captain, he was starting a family. He was becoming a, more of an adult, I guess is probably the better way to put it. And that was his primary off-ice focus. His primary off-ice focus was not like, hey, let me schedule like big get-togethers for the team. And let's all make sure that we hang out once a week and things like that and do something for Thanksgiving. Like, that wasn't his focus. Whereas I think this team, that is very much their focus. Like, we'll see if the loss of Scott Lawton changes that, because Lawton was definitely a social leader. But I think there's enough still there. Like, you look at the the Cam York, Jamie Drysdale, and now Trevor Zegers. Like that's a crew that are all going to be buddies. And like, look at how much Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost didn't want to leave because it was like all their buds.
Yeah.
He was so close with Owen Tippett. It does seem like this locker room is a bit is tighter socially than that one was. And that's not to say that people didn't like Giroux. Like, you talk to Travis Konechny today, and Travis Konechny, has nothing but great things to say about Claude Giroux. And he grew up in that room. Like, it was a Claude Giroux room when he was getting his start as a player. And you never hear him, both on the record and off the record, saying anything negative about Claude Giroux. Him and Jake were buds. Then you've got Simmons. Simmons was very tight with Jake Voracek. So I think there's something to be said with that. And that's actually one of the reasons why I suspect that the 2019-2020 team was as good as they were.
Yeah.
Because I think you had Giroux as more of the like set the tone, on ice kind of like this is the standard.
This is the yes.
This is how hard you have to work. And then Kevin Hayes comes in and he's like, I'll be the group chat guy. I'll be making sure that like we're going to Buffalo Billiards as a bunch, like the younger guys. Like, seriously, and I think that helped. I really do. I think that helped. In a way that like Giroux was not going to do that because Giroux's got a kid, Giroux's married, and he's just staying at home being a dad. So I think that does play a role in bringing a team together, and maybe Giroux was lacking in that way. It's hard for me to buy the idea that like he was a bad leader in the like all he cared about was his stats though. Like that's hard for me to accept.
If all he cared about was his stats, like he would have put up other like he would have just like he had to do so many things because no one else could. Like remember they brought in was Adam Hall. It was like, well, maybe he won't have to take so many defensive zone faceoffs now because he's the only guy who can win a freaking faceoff. Like it was like if all he cared about was his stats, he would have put up more stats. He would have cared more about only that. But anyway, it just it's frustrating. But yeah, like Giroux, just the way he was as a lead by example guy. I can see it being like not even like forming cliques, but like, hey man, if you want to be involved, just like show up and everything's cool. But like maybe not going out of his way to be like, you said, hey, we're doing Buffalo Billiards night. Everybody come do this stuff with us. Like that he just wasn't the kind of person he was. And I think that kind of speaks to the other thing about his captaincy. It was just kind of thrust upon him like. Yeah. The locker room was in an unhealthy place from the time, really, he came up with the team, and especially through his first few years in the league. And then 2011-12, we have the big turnover. All right, you're our 1CG, you're our guy, but the leader is one of the all-time freaking leaders in the sport, Chris Pronger. We have him. Okay, this is Giroux, you do your thing. You're going to be our leading scorer. You're our 1C. The team is built around you. But we have this mid to late 30s battle-tested veteran, Chris Pronger, as our captain. Well, that last 13 games, he plays his last game November 2011, and that's right after being named the captain. They go through that season basically without anyone wearing the C. They get to... that's through, 2011-12. Then there is the lockout. And then Giroux is named captain. January 2013, right before the puck drops after that half-season lockout. And that's that. And let's look how things progress from there. Like, all right, you lose your captain, the guy everyone's going to rally around in Chris Pronger. And a lot of your veteran leadership over the next couple of years, really year or two, is gone.
Yeah.
At the end of that 2013 season, Danny BriERA, who was thought of as a guy, he wears a letter. Everyone loves Danny. He's a clutch playoff performer. He's bought out in June of 2013. So BriERA is gone. One of the veterans, maybe Giroux and some of that young locker room could lead on. They, move on from Yager before that. He was a guy who, okay, man, everybody show up early. This is the work ethic, all that. They lose him after that one season in 2011-12 as well. Then BriERA bought out in 13. Lavi fired 3 games into 2013-14. Okay, now our coach who maybe should have been moved on from earlier, but that all of a sudden leadership hole. Now we're bringing up Craig Berube, first-time coach, more on coaching in a bit. Tiemann, a year later, didn't play at all in the 2014-15 season until he gets traded to Chicago around the deadline. Coburn was traded a few days later. All the veterans don't exist. And I think this is kind of where we're starting to see maybe a little bit of a difference between the current Flyers and that era. All right, let's say leadership was a pitfall of the previous generation. While I didn't agree with keeping Konechny and Sanheim around maybe when those decisions were made, I think the fact that we're going to have this young core of guys, whether it's Trevor Zegras or even younger with Mishkov and Martone, okay, you're going to be counted on to carry us offensively and all that, but we are going to have veteran guys behind you kind of pushing this team forward from a leadership perspective. Giroux really didn't have that luxury because, as I laid out, all those dudes were gone.
Yeah, I think if you're going back to your initial point of all this, which is how do the Flyers avoid the pitfalls of the previous era? How do they avoid this happening again, where there are questions about the leadership and whatnot? I think this is really what it boils down to, because what I'm thinking about is I'm thinking about Matvei Michkov right now. I'm thinking about the idea, like, let's say that, as I think we're all sort of assuming, at some point, whether it's this year, whether it's the following year, whether it's the year after that, that Matvei Michkov is going to have his monster, scores 90, 100 points, establishes himself as a clear-cut superstar, and he's that guy. I don't think that the next step should be, well, he's our best player, throw the C on him. We have to do it because he's our best player, and our best player should get the C because we want to sell a lot of jerseys, and we'll be able to pump out more Mishkov jerseys if this one has a C on it. Like, you can't tell me that didn't play a role. The idea of well, yeah, you all got your Giroux jerseys, but now you got to get your Giroux jerseys with the C on it. Like, that to me is a pitfall they have to avoid, because look, Mishkov could. I don't know how he's going to develop socially as he gets better with the language and how he's going to fit in that room. But I go back to a conversation I had with the DNVR guys when I was over in Denver last season. And we were talking about the captaincy in Colorado. And obviously, Gabriel Landeskog has been the captain of that team for a long time. He's been out for a while.
Yeah.
And I asked them on the air, I'm like, because that was when they still weren't sure if Landeskog was going to come back. There was still a lot of uncertainty there. And it was, well, we'll see. We'll see if he can come back for the playoffs. Obviously, he did. But I asked them, is the thing like they're just going to give it to McKinnen? He's one of the 3 best players in the world. He's already got an A. Like, is that what it's going to be? And to a man, they're like, no, can't do it. And the reason was like, you got to understand, like, everybody on that team loves Nathan McKinnon. He's extremely well respected, but he's a lunatic. The guy is nuts. And if you put the C on his jersey, he's going to hold everyone to the standard of him, and it's going to be a disaster. Like, it's probably going to be Makar, because Makar can be that guy who can bring the room together rather than be the guy that everybody looks to as like, oh man, I wish I was as insane as Nate McKinnon, but I know I will never be because that's why he's Nate McKinnon.
Yeah.
That strikes me as more like Mishkov. And I don't know if I even after, Sean Couturier either retires or, whatever, put on long-term injury reserve, his contract is up. I don't know. Even after he's gone, I don't know if Matvei Michkov, even if he is one of the 4 best players in the world, I don't know if he is the right fit for the C, and they shouldn't give him the C just because he's that guy.
That's it was a long time ago, and you and I weren't covering the team full time and 12, 13, whatever. But did they really need to put the C on Giroux just to be like, okay, it's your team now, bud? I even go back to when they put it on Richards. Now, the moment they drafted Mike Richards, it was like, oh, yeah, he's going to be a captain. He's the next Bobby Clark, whatever. His compete level, all this stuff. And then it's like that summer they ask him about it, and he goes, I don't really want it. Jason Smith's our captain. And it's, all right, well, he's just being respectful of the veteran. Maybe it wasn't the smartest idea to put it on him at that age, though. And then you do the exact same thing with Claude Giroux, where you give it to a young guy who's coming into his own as a player. It just seems like a bad idea. they really, I am all for, like, if Couturier's here the whole time, keep the C on him, obviously. And then I am all for the veteran or even Jason Smith style captain where uh, I changed my mind during the Giroux era. Like, oh, put it on your best player because I want him getting to know all the officials and get the superstar calls because that's the captain's main job, really, is talking to the refs. And then I watched Giroux for 10 years never get calls that other superstars got.
It's true.
And I was like, well, this whole theory is out the window. So, like, the idea of putting the C on him so early, I think back-to-back captains, they proved this isn't the way to go. And I hope they have a better plan moving forward once Sean Couturier, for whatever reason, isn't here anymore. Like, I don't want it to be Mishkov for that reason alone. I don't even care if he's right for it. I don't want it.
Look, if he's the guy in the room, if he's the guy that everybody looks to and it's already established, even with Couturier still there or whatever, I'm not reflexively opposed to it, but I just don't think it should be done just because he's the best player on the team, especially when, and look, we don't know how this guy's going to pan out either, but Porter Martone was already the captain of his junior team. Like, that might be the move. It's like, okay, this is a guy who at age 18 has already shown leadership ability in junior hockey. Maybe he's not the best player on the Flyers, but I think the hope is that Martone's going to be maybe the second or third best player on the Flyers in 6-7 years. Maybe that's the move. Mishkov wears the A because he's Matvei Mishkov and he's one of the best players in hockey. And then Porter Martone is the guy who is the guy that everybody looks to as the captain. I don't know how this is going to play out. I'm just saying that I think Giroux was given the C because he was Claude Giroux, best player on the team, MVP candidate. And I don't think that should be why it happens if it happens. It should happen because he is the actual leader of the team in all but name, and then he gets the name. You shouldn't just give it to him because it's like, well, we got to slap it on our best player. So here you go, Matvei.
I always think of when they took it off Lindros. And it's Desjardins for a year and a half or something. And then eventually he just goes, Keith Primo is the captain of this team. He's getting the C. And they just make Primo, like, kind of just hands it over. And, like, that's the sort of thing, that's how a captain should be named, whether it's the coaches or the players on the team. Like, it just shouldn't go to a guy because, well, he's our best player. Let's do it. I realized that was the fad for a while. You know, they did it with Ovechkin and they did it with Crosby. And then it was, okay, every team needs the good young player. It's Jonathan Toews. And it's like, maybe it should be more of a Toews-esque guy than a, like, Crosby it worked out for. You know, it's just, I don't like the idea now of just slapping it on your best player. And I hope they avoid that at all costs because I saw it fall apart. I saw it not work. Even if, like, I don't necessarily blame Giroux's captaincy as the reason, but maybe just for narrative purposes, it's stupid to do. You know, like, I don't need to see on Mishkov because he's already tasked with carrying this team. Now it's, well, he's got to give the locker room speech and drag everyone into the fight. Like, nah, man, just put up like 90, 100 points and someone else can give the freaking speech.
Yeah, and even if you don't buy the, like, magical leadership theory of everything is better if you have a good captain, even if you think that's all BS, what isn't BS, and I watched this in the Giroux era, is how much extra criticism the captain gets when the team struggles. And I don't necessarily want Matvei Mishkov to have to deal with that. You know, he's already a guy who's going to be putting enormous amounts of pressure on himself. Claude Giroux is a guy who put enormous amounts of pressure on himself. And then he's got columnists every other month being like, well, the team would be better if Claude Giroux was a good leader. It's like, I don't know. The team would be better if they had more than 2 good defensemen. That to me is the bigger problem. But at least then you don't have to deal with the noise.
And, like, the good defensemen are, you know, a third and second year player in Provorov and freaking Shane Gostisbehere, who are both, like, bottom 4 defensemen really in the league, not top pair.
Yeah.
Again, there's just so much that went wrong. It wasn't the freaking leadership, you know? That's like, yeah, maybe if it was a point, like, if we're making a list, all right, let's put it on there. But I got like 8 things ahead of it.
There were other more important issues to be sure.
I got like 8 things ahead of it. Some of them are just the front office or position groups or individual players. Like, oh yeah, here's $30 million. Andrew McDonald. Like maybe that was a bigger problem. Anyway.
And part of it too, before we go to break, like,
Yeah.
this is obviously what sparked this was Dale Weise. Okay.
Yes.
Dale Weise is the guy who says it. Like, Dale Weise is almost certainly not going to come away from his time with the Flyers and his evaluation be, yeah, we weren't good because we stunk, because that implies that he stunk, which like he did, but he's not going to want to admit that to himself.
Exactly. No, man. If it wasn't for G wanting to be out there for 2 minutes on the power play, I could have put up better numbers. I doubt it. I seriously freaking doubt it. Mate, like,
it's funny that the one guy on that team who I mean, and I think Jake Voracek would acknowledge, like, he would never have been a good candidate for the C.
No.
He was definitely more of the, like, I want to be friends with you, but I don't want to lead. Like, when there's a coaches meeting and the coach comes in and does his spiel, and then like Jake would like talk to a younger player and be like, yeah, just ignore him and play your game. Like, that's probably not the kind of guy you want wearing the C. Might be the guy you want as your buddy, but he might not be the guy you want wearing the C. But what I was getting at was that Voracek was maybe the only guy who I've heard be like, yeah, we didn't win championships because we just weren't good enough. Like, we just didn't have enough talent. And like, that's accurate, but you rarely hear guys say it. It's all like, well, if we would have tried a little bit harder. And it's like, no, Jake's like, yeah, we just really didn't have a good enough team those years to really compete for cups.
It's just like, yes, certain guys could have been better in certain playoff teams, like 14, 18. In which one of those playoff series were they favored? All right, 2012 against the Devils, sure.
Yeah.
All right. After that, when? They were never going to beat the 1 seed Rangers. They were never going to beat that Capitals team. They're never going to beat that Penguins team.
The 2020 season is the only time.
That's it.
That's the one you can point to.
It's so far over in terms of like Giroux's prime at that point. That was the time finally it was, okay, he's the veteran leader, and we actually have young guys who are kind of stepping up. There's like a second wave of players for the first time. And it's just, it's the most frustrating thing, because it's, how do you not see what the actual problem was? All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about this on the other side, but first, let's take that second commercial break. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. From their 90 million users worldwide to their almost 800,000 live stream events each year, including all sorts of really fun stuff. I was talking to somebody from Bet365 a couple weeks ago, telling us about the Darts World Championship at MSG they went to and how it was such a great time. And that's, this time of year, all right, we're getting ready for football. We're getting ready for hockey. But night to night, do I really feel like betting on baseball? Well, guess what? Bet365 has the biggest selection of sports to bet on and bet on live in games. They have 78 different sports you can bet on a nightly basis. And right now, they want me to tell you about that MLB early payout offer. I've told you about the one in hockey. Oh, you bet an NHL game. You take, Flyers on the money line. Flyers win. If the Flyers open up a 3-goal lead, you're a winner. You don't have to sweat out the game. Well, they have something very similar for baseball as well. With the Bet365 early payout offer, you're a winner if your team goes up 5 runs. You get an instant payout on moneyline bets, and your parlay selections are marked as winners as well. And we have breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, win or lose. All you got to do is sign up, use the code PHLY365, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $200 in bonus bets, whether your initial bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or somebody who has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. While we're here, I got to tell you about our friends at Ace Hardware Home Services, because if you have an outlet you said you'd fix last summer, guess what? It's been a year. One more YouTube tutorial isn't going to do it. You got to go to Ace Hardware Home Services, because not only do they have all the parts and hardware you need to get the job done, but they've got the person to do the job as well. From plumbing and electrical to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long at Ace Hardware Home Services. They're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love from the store, now to your front door. From Philly to the Jersey Shore. Listen, It's going to be getting cold soon. Maybe you haven't turned on that heat in a little while. You go to do it first day of fall, and suddenly, oh, yeah, that's not working. Where's all this? What's going on in my house? You're not going to be able to fix that. You are not a professional. That's why you got to call the pros at Ace Hardware Home Services. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. And Charlie, that's the in terms of like the leadership thing, if we are going to like make it an issue, like they're just until Kevin Hayes, like it just doesn't seem like they had enough bodies to fill that void. Like you had Claude Giroux, okay, he's the captain. You have Wayne Simmons, who is another like pull you into the fight sort of
Yeah,
guy.
he was like the bad cop in the room.
Yes.
Like Giroux was
Yeah.
the guy who's like, "Hey, we gotta play harder, guys." And then Wayne would be the guy who would go over to somebody and be like, "You're not pulling your weight. Get your ass
Like
together."
you have those two. As we said, Jake is, he would admit, maybe not the personality to be considered a leader. Beyond that, it's a bunch of young defensemen, veteran free agents they bring in for a year or two just to kind of fill bodies. They never really had another wave of like guys who've been through it all and can you really like be the leaders of this team and tell you what it takes to do. Like they also needed maybe what Valtteri Filppula was supposed to be, but like again, you also need like good player to be your 2C. Like you need someone who produces still and also can maybe tell you what it takes to like be in a conference final, because no one other than Claude Giroux in that room had ever been in one before, and it was his second, third year in the league. Like I do like the idea that this team, one, like they've kept around guys. We're gonna have Sean Couturier. We're gonna have Travis Konechny, Travis Sanheim. But maybe there's something to, you need some of those veterans around who've just kind of been through stuff before, and that's something Giroux never had either.
I think you hit the nail right on the head here in the sense of one of the big issues of this era, and it's something that we've talked about ad nauseum, to be sure. You mentioned about the idea of, well, maybe Giroux needed some veteran leaders, some guys who, had been through it, who were respected. One of the problems was when they went out to get guys like that, they got players who weren't very good. Like, it's hard for a veteran leader to impart his wisdom when he's going out there and getting obliterated every single night. Like, who were the guys that they were going out and getting? They weren't guys who had like been through it and won cups and had been on great teams. They were guys like Andrew McDonald, Dale Weiss, like even like Nick Schultz, who like good dude. He works for the team. But I don't think like Nick Schultz was going to be somebody who like Claude Giroux's coming to for advice about how to get through the grind of a season. Like, is Nick Schultz going to be able to impart wisdom about how to win a Stanley Cup? Like, they were really bad. And this is a Hakstol thing, first and foremost. They were really bad at getting vets, good vets. Because it's not just like, oh, we need a vet. Like, yeah, you can get a guy who's played in 500 NHL games, who's in his late 20s, early 30s, whatever. But they have to be able to play well for them to really have respect. Like, yes, you can get like an Eric Johnson who has just done it for so long that he can be like the guy in the room who just has that respect because he's won a cup and he's played 1,000 games. Sure, you can do that. But it really helps if your vets are actual good players. And they weren't for the most part in Philly during that era. They were all guys that either were never that good or had years where they were good and then were on very much the down, like a guy like Mark Streit. And even Mark Streit, like those Islanders teams.
Oh, there you go. Did you freeze, Charlie?
I don't know. I stopped talking.
Oh, no. I was just like, yeah, like the Islanders. Like, that's what, oh, good. Another guy. And that's, I think, speaks to some of the success, like you said, with that 1920 team. Finally, when like Giroux and Simmons and then Kevin Hayes comes, like, these are your veterans. And you also have guys like Provorov and Konechny entering their prime. Like, okay, now we have both things, good young players and some leaders who've at least done something before.
Yeah, like what I'm looking at the 2016, 2017 Flyers team. What were they going to learn from Chris Van de Velde? Like what was the point? Like and that was how they were filling out the lineup with guys where like they were literally just bodies. They weren't providing any on ice value, and they weren't providing much in the way of off ice value in terms of being uniquely able to help out a leadership group and provide something in the way of, interesting input, or this is how you do it when you're going through tough times. Like, and I'm not even like, I'm not doing this to crap on Chris Van de Velde. He
No.
seemed like a nice enough guy, but what was he providing? And there were too many guys on that team, both on ice and off the ice, where it was just, you looked at them and you just said to yourself, like, what would you say you do here?
That's like, in terms of players maybe they're going to be targeting over the next few years, do you think there should be some consideration given to, like, not only do we need a good veteran to fill a role, like, at center in the middle of this lineup, or, a top 4 defenseman or whatever, but a guy with some experience, because even our veterans, Konechny, maybe Sanheim going to the Olympics or something is going to play a bigger role, but like, none of these guys have even been to a conference final before, like, do you think some credence should be given to that when they're searching for trade targets and free agents and whatnot?
Yes, I do. But the key to this is the
Also
guy
still
also
good.
still has to be good. Like the platonic ideal of this is Chris Pronger. And I'm not
Yes.
saying that they can go out and find Chris Pronger because
Yeah.
Chris Pronger was one of a kind. But yeah, if you can go out there and like I don't think, for example, I don't think that solving the defenseman, like they don't have a number one defenseman. I don't think that has to be get a guy in his like 24 to 28 prime. I think you can go out and get a guy who's 33, 34 if he's real good, and that's fine. That might even be preferable, because then you can look at this guy who's been there, who's gone through it, who's the grizzled vet that's still real good, and then he can provide both of those things. He can provide that steadying, take all the minutes in the playoffs presence, and also be the guy that the leaders on the team can look to and say, hey, how do we do it when we're down 3-1 in a series? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just, like, that is the sort of backup Giroux never had, and maybe that's one of the first real lessons, is like, it has to be both a veteran who helps in the locker room, but also, like, not Eric Johnson. Again, it's fine. Like,
Great
those
dude.
those guys are very helpful too, but in terms of the leadership circle, it has to be someone who's still good, because if you're not a nightly contributor, you're one of the reasons we're putting W's, up on in the standings. You just don't carry as much weight. Like, your experience can help if you're the 7th defenseman and you've been around for 1,000 games, but it has to be a guy who can come in and immediately command the respect, because it's like, of course I'm going to listen to this dude,
Yeah.
And I think that gets to my final point on coaching is
before you go into that, I want to name a guy who, like, to me is like the perfect example, because everything I've heard from people on this team say that like he was essential, not just because he was great in the room, which he was, but also because he played a major role in these teams, like Tampa Bay getting Ryan McDonagh.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Tampa was a team that they were real talented. They couldn't get over the hump. Ryan McDonagh played a huge role, not only in being a 20-plus minute a night defenseman, but also a guy who went to a cup final with the Rangers, was a number one defenseman on that team for years, and then was able to bring that to a team trying to get to the next level while also still being a really good defenseman. He's so valuable, they traded for him again.
Yeah, they brought him back, and he played, over 20 minutes a night for them last season at age 35, and I think that's the kind of guy you're talking about. Like,
exactly.
In those years with the Rangers before he's in Tampa Bay, like, Norris finishes in the top 10, top 15, like, he was considered one of the better defensemen in the league, and then even in his later years, still providing value, and like carries that weight as a dude who's been through stuff before. And I think that carries over to coaching as well. I mentioned the Laviolette, like, getting fired 3 games into, Giroux's second season as captain, and then they replace him. Now, listen, Craig Berube went on to be a very good coach. wins a cup in St. Louis, all that. But Craig Berube and then Dave Hakstol, both first-time head coaches. So you have very few veteran leaders, nobody who's done more than Claude Giroux, and like, he goes to a cup final, but that's really, he goes in '08, he's on the team that goes to the conference final, but like no one else with any experience, and your coaches have never coached in the NHL before. That can't be all that helpful, and I think this is another area, no matter your opinion of Rick Tocchet, you can't say he lacks experience.
Sure.
He's coached a ton in the NHL, and of course, as an NHL player, he has done literally everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you even saw with John Tortorella. And look, we can talk about the mistakes John Tortorella made and him going too far in certain areas, namely the Sean Couturier situation. But no one denies that he implemented discipline on this team, that he set a standard. And that is, yes, in part, that's on the leadership group of a team. And even Tortorella said, like, look, there's only so much I can do. It has to come from within. It has to come from the room. But I can help the room set that standard. I can put them in position, put the leadership in a position where they feel more comfortable holding people accountable. I'm not sure that the coaches that Giroux had either were good enough at all to do that or maybe just weren't ready. Like Craig Berube's a tough dude. Like Craig Berube, I don't think has any issue with implementing a standard, but it was his first time as a head coach. He wasn't as good at it as he was going to get.
Yeah, and it's just like he's also taking over this situation where it's, okay, who is my trusted core of leaders? I just watched this team basically get the guy I was the assistant to fired. There was just a disconnect, it felt like. And then you go to Dave Hakstol, and it's like, this guy is only coached in college, and you have a group of players who, like, some of them, you have a real stars and scrubs roster here with just, all right, man, we have Jake and G, and Braden Shen eventually comes along, like, after the Luke Shen trade, and in the back half of 2016, Braden Shen comes along, and, like, Sean Couturier coming into his own, but he's young. Like, Craig Berube, not a huge fan. Dave Hakstol, eventually we get there with Coots, but like it just, the coaches were in a bad position, especially considering their lack of experience. All of these things, like these little things like that, I think it bodes well that Danny and Jonesy are kind of setting it up not to at least have those same pitfalls. I really do think that these issues, whether we want to say they were the main reason, I don't think so, or at least part of the reason the team wasn't that successful, I do think Danny and Jonesy are like making it a priority to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, and they're learning from the mistakes of the past. It does seem like now we just hope they don't make their own sets of mistakes, that 10 years from now, the next group will be learning from the mistakes of this era. Hopefully these guys are still running the show in 10 years because they didn't make mistakes.
Dear God, I hope so. That's the other thing. Just the amount of turnover. I saw someone put it in the comments earlier. Like, there's just turnover in the front office, new coaches every couple of years, like a little bit of stability. I realize hockey, unless you're the Tampa Bay Lightning, you're not going to have a Patriots or Eagles situation where you have the same, even if it's not coach, like people in charge for 12, 15, 20 years. But like, a little bit of stability could probably go a long way, and I think they're building towards that as well.
I hope so.
All right, let's just trigger overtime, and I believe we have one super chat, Julia. So yeah, we are now headed to overtime. Go to allphly.com if you're part of our TV audience. There we go. And all right.
Doing the Kelly buzzer.
I missed Kelly. I just missed you guys the last couple of days. I was like, oh, I'm actually looking forward to Friday's show. I'm gonna get to talk crap on Dale Weise, which is one of my favorite things. Talk about the captaincy with you, which I know is great. All right, but let's hit that. I believe we only have the one super chat, so let's hit that and get out of here and trigger the weekend.
Heyo.
All right, from it's our pal DA Flyers, man. I too hope that Jerry Jones lives until age 110. I believe you tweeted that the other day, Chuck.
It's a reference to my tweet after news of the Micah Parsons trade went down. It's my running joke for the last like 2 years, 3 years has been, I hope Jerry Jones lives until he's 100. Like, not a good human being, but I hope he lives until he's 100 and keeps running the Dallas Cowboys into the ground. And I just tweeted yesterday, like, I'm amending this to I hope he lives until he's 110.
I will personally send him blood if he needs blood donations. If he needs a kidney, he can have one of mine. Keep that man in charge of the Dallas Cowboys forever. Yeah, I love that. That's our only super chat.
So
we started talking baseball and then went into Giroux and captaincy, and our one super chat is about the Birds. But hey, they kick off this coming week, and it's a football town, so I understand. But
Indeed.
That is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, you got to hit that follow button, subscribe right here on YouTube, and hit that thumbs up. Give us a freaking like. And remember, we're off Monday for Labor Day, and Tuesday, when we come back, rolls around 4 p.m., so make sure you hit that reminder bell so you get notifications whenever we go live. Follow the podcast wherever you get those. Just search PHLY Flyers and follow us on all the socials. On Twitter, we're at PHLY_Flyers. That's it for us. I am Bill Matz. There we go. That is Charlie O'Connor. Till Tuesday, be excellent to each other.
We all silly like the mayor.